everyone. Let's talk etiquette. I'm back once again, and this is such a pleasure to be here. I'm so excited. My entire day has been thinking about this very moment, being here on CAN TV. And I'm so pleased to be able to work with such wonderful people. CAN TV is the thing that's going on in Chicago. I'm shouting their glory out to everyone because this is such an opportunity to be with you, to share some of our thoughts on this grand subject called etiquette. And the Etiquette Foundation of Illinois is indeed just so happy to be able to talk about this subject, to be able to share our values with you, just to let you know how we feel about this grand subject. Just to give you an example, we have over 200 etiquette books in our library, going back to the 17th century. So we've had the opportunity to study this discipline over the last 200-300 years. And there's so much out there on this subject. It's just every imaginable thing you can think of that relates to behavior. And what I mean by behavior, civilized behavior. Civilized behavior. That term means something. It's a way of conducting yourself in society. There are a set of rules based on how you should conduct yourself in every given situation. There's no such thing as I don't have to be that way because I don't want to practice etiquette. I don't think it's necessary for me to do this because I don't think it's necessary. But what is your role in this society? That's what you have to ask yourself. What are my obligations to my fellow human being, my fellow citizens? We have an obligation to one another. We have decided to come together to live together in peace and harmony, to build a better world for ourselves and for our children. What is this all about if it's not about that? We want to have a safe environment. We want to have peace in the world. And the way we do that is following these simple, they're not complicated rules, following these simple rules, making them a part of who you are, your character. And if you can do that, it's not difficult. It is never too late to start. You can be my age, even older. Pick up you an etiquette book. They're everywhere. You go online, Google etiquette books. And there they are right there. And they're really inexpensive. So there's no real reason for you not to have one in your library. And if you read that book, it will give you a lesson on how to be civilized. Okay? There are obligations and responsibilities in being civilized. And so, please take my advice. Please do just that for yourself. And if we started to teach our children how to be civilized, that's where the word civilization came from. So that's where the word citizen derived from. That's where the word civil, civility, all of those relate to who we are collectively and as individuals. And believe me, you'll be so much more happier when you practice etiquette and you get that kind of positive response from your fellow citizen. And you don't have to know them. You may never see them again in your life, but just that little encounter that you had with that other civilized human being, and the exchange that you all had in the moment, and you related and they related back to you, or they related and you related back to them. They gave it to you and you returned it, and you both walked away feeling better about yourself, that you were able to relate to this person as another human being that deserved all of the respect and dignity that you extended to them. Now, what's wrong with that? Tell me. Why are we so uncivilized? It's amazing. It is truly amazing. But today, I want you to call me. There's our number right there. That's 312-738-1060. Give me a call. Tell me what you think about this subject and what experiences you had with being mistreated or disrespected or just, whatever it was that you didn't feel right that some other citizen did to you. It could be something simple. Some people bump into you and don't even say excuse. Don't even act like you were there. I'm sure you had that happen. And so those are the kinds of things that is very uncivil. If you bumped into someone, but you don't think it's necessary to say excuse me. And that's so sad. But today, I want to also get back to our main topics that we've been covering for the last several shows. And that is etiquette-centered mentoring, yes, as well as etiquette-centered parenting. Two awesome subjects have such great purpose and meaning in the world. Our parents, you have such an awesome responsibility to raise your children to be mannerable, decent human beings. It is such an awesome responsibility. And I know it because I'm a parent. I'm a grandparent, a great-grandparent. So I know full well what you are up against. Now, fortunately for me, I had wonderful parents who taught me to be a little gentleman, to be always respectful to adults, and use professional titles in addressing adults. Yes, sir, Mr. Jones. Why, of course, Mr. Jones. Absolutely, Mr. Jones. Or Mrs. Jones. How are you today? You look wonderful. It's a pleasure to see you today. And so there were specific things, ways of addressing other adults that I was taught in the home. And as I got older, I was allowed to say things a little different because of my age. When I turned 13, 14, I could be a little more mature and make some compliments to Mrs. Jones that was appropriate for my age. But my mother taught those things and my father taught those things to me. And in the community I live, I saw it with my own eyes. And the benefit it had on me psychologically, intellectually, culturally, that made me what I am today. And so that's what's missing in our training of our children. And from the South, and that's where I'm from the South and I love it. Never had a bad experience, and I came up during the time when I had to ride on the back of the bus and drink from colored water fountains. And yet I did not have a bad experience that I can remember. And that's kind of rare, I suppose, to be able to say that. And certainly we had encounters with whites in the South. And they were always seemed to be nice and pleasant, So I was fortunate, I suppose. I didn't have that. My parents didn't have it. They didn't come home saying that they had a bad experience. So those traditions, that culture had a profound impact on me. That was positive. Okay? So you parents out there, you are faced with 10 times, maybe 50 times what my mother and father was confronted with in raising me. Yeah, okay, I have to admit, I was the only child. And I know that can make a difference if you're the only child. See, so both my parents had the opportunity to focus on me, right? I was the one. They didn't have to concern themselves with my brothers and sisters because there weren't any. So they could just work on me. So I was their work of art. And it was a wonderful childhood for me. I was happy. I don't remember anything bad. I was just a happy child. That's what etiquette does. It creates an environment for you to create happiness within your family. Because there are rules to life. And you want to teach your child the traditional rules. Because whether you want to believe it or not, they're not going to change. Those traditional rules of behavior are not going to change. Don't let them fool you with the TV melodramas about what is behavior of today. Okay? Because no matter how far you leave a given subject, you always come back to it. Because that foundation is going to still be there. You see? And so you're going to go out maybe and do crazy things, and this is where we're at now. We're in this, I don't know what's going on with us now. And we will return to understanding the importance of having good manners and good morals in this society. But one of the things I want to kind of talk to my parents about this evening for this etiquette-centered parenting, and we've talked about this on several occasions, is that, to give you an example, when I was a child, of course, there were things I wanted for Christmas, like most children want certain things for Christmas. And I was fortunate. I received all of the basics. A new bicycle twice, a train set twice. I had a wonderful Lion train set. And my father would get on the floor and play with me, and we had such a good time together. We was more like play buddies than we were like father and son. And so, but in today's world, they have found so many ways to get inside your child's head. This thing called, the internet, these cell phones. All of these are entry into your child's head, okay? And if you as a parent do not caution your child about these things that's flying around in the air and entering their head, then you don't be surprised or shocked when your child begin to talk about things. What did she hear, or what did he hear from there? How did he learn that? Where did that come from? Okay? And that's because they are giving and I won't say giving, I would say they are communicating with your child on levels that more involved with selling your child something. And whether it's a toy or a game, and suddenly your child's wish list for Christmas is some things on there that you probably wouldn't buy for them if you really understood how it will affect your child in terms of their intellectual development, in terms of their emotional development, and all of that. So parents, be very careful about what you purchase for your child for Christmas. And this is just using common sense. That's all I'm saying. Use common sense. And I would certainly encourage us parents, men in particular, these video games. I'm not anti-video games, but there are certain video games that are really counterproductive for your son or for your daughter to even play. And so, please, as a parent, spare your child the exposure to some of these things that could be counterproductive. And some of these things could affect your child's moral values. We don't want to produce any more boys being desensitized to killing something else, an object. Now it's an object, shooting and killing, right? So you don't want to expose them to that kind of violence. Because when you look at the society we live in today, we have a lot of violence being committed by young men. Something is contributing to them having that kind of desensitizing behavior where they can pick up a gun and shoot someone. So as a parent, etiquette-centered parenting is providing some security for your child not to be entertained with violence. I know that may not make a lot of sense to some of my parents out there, but that is something from my experience that I would like for you to take into consideration on what you purchase for your child. So etiquette-centered parenting is really about providing an environment for your child that's wholesome, positive, and loving. So if you provide that for your child, and of course Christmas is a wonderful time to give gifts to show your love for your child and make your child feel happier, okay? But just keep in mind there are certain things that I would advise our parents not to make a Christmas gift. Because think about that. Jesus Christ, that's what we're supposed to be celebrating, the birth of Jesus Christ, right? But that's never talked about in the commercials that you see on TV. It's almost like the purpose for the holiday no longer exists in its proper context. Okay? So keep that in mind. Christ was about peace loving. Christ was about, making humanity a better place. Okay? Christ wasn't about any of this other things, the other stuff that our children finding some reason to want for Christmas. So have a talk, have a conversation with your child. Just tell them, I looked at this son, and I don't think this is something that we as your parents would want to purchase for you. And here's the reason why. You have to explain to the child, your child, why you're not going to purchase this particular thing. Because yes, your son would be at someone else's house and they'll be playing these Mortal Kombat and these other games that you know are really counterproductive, and they'll be exposed to them. And so what I would do as a parent, if a cousin or brother or anyone else in my family had children and their children they were buying these things for their children, I would have a conversation with them. I said, my son wants to come over and play with your son, but I'm opposed to my son, being involved with these kinds of games. Is it possible they can come over and do some other activities as opposed to that? If I'm asking too much, I apologize for that, and I just won't bring my son over here. Because as his parent, it's my obligation to give him a wholesome upbringing, a positive upbringing. That's my obligation to him. And if I'm a good parent, then that's what I have to stick to. It's called protecting your child. You see? And that protection could be putting him in a seatbelt, making sure he's secure in the car. You're doing it to protect your child. If you're crossing the street, you want to make sure the light is appropriate. And if your child is young enough, you have to hold their hand. That's what you do. Because that's your responsibility as that individual's father. So it doesn't matter if it's something like that or if it's what you purchase for them that may be counterproductive, that may introduce some things to your child that's not wholesome and healthy and positive, then refuse to do it. It's not that complicated. Just refuse to do it. But explain to your child why you're doing it. Because they think it's harmless. Oh, Daddy, this is not. My friend John, he plays with them. His parents buy them for him. It doesn't seem like nothing's wrong with him. You see? But when you instill in your child's mind that it's okay to shoot and kill with the idea of killing, whatever it is you're shooting at, your objective is to kill it. Whether it's an animated image, or maybe one day, it could be something a lot worse. So it's your obligation as that child's parent to make sure that you raise your child to be the greatest human being on planet Earth. A moral, high character, with great integrity individual. then that is etiquette-centered parenting. So I'm encouraging all our parents to do just that. On our next show, we're going to have our program already. We're working very hard to put it all together so we can have those 8 sessions with both mentors and parents who is interested in getting some education in this discipline. And yes, you will get an education in this discipline by participating in our 8-session program. And if you do and you complete it, you will get a certificate. And it will cost you nothing. Absolutely nothing. So let me throw this up real quick to kind of cover the objective of parenting. Maybe this would be a real help in seeing where we are at as, let's see, what did I do wrong here? Okay. I've made a mistake and hit the wrong button. Oh, there it is. Ah, you see I'm having fun. Okay, isn't, uh-oh. Now let me try this over here again. Oh, there it is. Ah, all right. Let me kind of turn it so you can see it here. Okay, etiquette-centered parenting is carefully evaluating your child's dietary and nutritional requirements during the first 20 years. Your goal is to prepare your child to live a healthy and active life for the next 60 years. Now, I know that may not sound like something noble, but I personally think what you feed your child is going to be important as to that child's longevity and health. And so you as his parents should certainly reduce the McDonald's and other kinds of fast fooders out here and cook more healthier food for your child. I know that may take a little more work, but it's worth it in the long run because you would end up with a much more healthier child that would have a much more better quality of life than they would otherwise. Okay? So with that, I'm going to put up our information before we close out the show so you can see how to contact us if you want to participate in our class. Just send us an email because this is how we're going to communicate with you. We're going to communicate via email. Send us an email at info@efoi.org. And with that email, we will be able to communicate with you, give you updates, information on when the class is going to start. And of course, if there are any changes on that schedule, then you will be alerted via email. Now, those classes are going to start in the spring of the year. May is going to be the month. They're going to be in the evening time, so that hopefully that will allow you to be able to participate. Somewhere in the late, maybe 6 o'clock. We haven't decided 6 or 6:30. Those classes will start. So most people will be off of work and be able to come and participate. There'll be an hour to an hour and a half each class, depending on how interactive and the kinds of questions we may get from the participant. But I guarantee you it's going to be a life lesson for you as a parent and you as a mentor. Because now you'll be able to teach your mentees, or parents will be able to teach their children, a discipline that is connected with this society. It is the foundation of this society. And if they have an education in that discipline, then they're going to be much more successful regardless of what profession they choose to do. And with that said, I want to say good evening and thank you so much for watching CAN TV and Let's Talk Etiquette, and we will be back to see you next week. Good evening.